Boys, Datacron set 18 got released a few days ago. It took me a little while to get all of the things and stuff made and figure out how I wanted to go about this, but I'm going to have chapters below, but I'm going to kind of give you a TLDR of what we're going to talk about in the video so that way you can skip to the chapter that's relevant to you. First, we're going to start off with our biggest winners. We're just going to talk about the level 9s that make the most sense, that are the you want this Datacron if you have this character. We're going to go through each one. I'm going to recommend a level 6 and a level 3, and maybe give you a couple of options depending on the character. So if you have any of the characters that are in the first few chapters, then I would recommend watching through those, especially if you have a lot of these characters so you can see the different ones that we're going to use. Then I will go separately and talk about the level 3s, level 6, and level 9s independently of one another. Talk about why I maybe didn't pick some of the level 9s. Talk about level 6s that might work in other teams that don't have level 9s specifically, or characters that are going to have level 9s. And then some of the level 3s that maybe are helpful for some of your teams as well. So that's how we're going to go through this. Let me know if you like the format of this or if you'd like me to do it differently next time. But with that being said, let's get into our first character. The first character that we're going to talk about is Old Republic. It's going to be Shorty. This is an okay one. I think a lot of people are going to sleep on this and just say, hey, this isn't good. But if you have your Shorty, I think this is a great team to run. While Shorty is active, at the start of Shorty's turn, apply spare parts to all other droid allies that do not have it. Whenever a droid ally gains spare parts, they gain 25% off in stacking for the rest of the encounter. Whenever a droid ally is defeated, dispel all debuffs on Shorty. I'm going to pair this with the level 6. That's whenever Old Republic ally grants a buff to another ally, that ally gains 10% turn meter. This is because Shorty's going to be spreading that spare parts, and also Shorty has a couple other buffs in her kits that she can spread, that I think this is going to be helpful. T3 and 4 also spread some buffs around, so I think between the two of them, this is going to be the one you want because it's going to just help your turn meter train go a little faster. For level 3, I'm recommending the one that's whenever light side allies inflict a debuff on an enemy, they deal damage equal to that enemy to 2% of that enemy's max health. There's quite a few debuffs on this team, and I think that adding that extra max health damage is really going to be the best one here. That level 3 is the least important of these. I think the level 6 and level 9 are the most important. So if you can get that level 9, that level 6, I think you're going to be in business. If you get that level 3, great. Icing on cherry on top of the ice cream. So next, we're going to talk about Carth. Carth is a big one that's in this set. I think that Carth is going to be run with just the OG Old Republic team. I do think I want to put a caveat in here. I do think there's potential to run him with Jedi Knight Revan. I'll be doing testing on that if I can get this Carth Datacron, since I bought the Lightspeed bundle, so I do have a Relic 5 Carth, but I don't. You can see I don't have the rest of my Old Republic Relic. So I'm going to try to run Carth under a Old Republic Jedi team, so running Bastila, Jolee, Jedi Knight Revan, Carth, and then maybe like T3 or maybe just like Grandmaster Yoda or something. But I don't think it's going to be as good as if you have your Old Republic relic and are able to use this Datacron. So Carth has 100% max health, max protection, and potency, and he gains 15% turn meter whenever another character ends their turn. Whenever he uses his basic ability, he attacks 2 more times. Whenever an Old Republic ally resists a debuff, they dispel all debuffs on themselves and gain 10% tenacity stacking until the end of battle. Whenever an Old Republic ally is dazed, they dispel it. Whenever they dispel daze, they gain 15% turn meter. Whenever Carth uses a special ability, he triggers the damage of all damage over time debuffs on enemies. Whenever an enemy is defeated, Carth gains 25% offense stacking and critical damage stacking until the end of the battle. His cooldowns are reset, and he gains 100% turn meter. This is going to be a busted Datacron. I'm telling you right now, it's just going to be busted. I think this is just going to be really, really solid. If you have Relic Old Republic, this is the Datacron I think to go after for your account. The first time each Old Republic ally falls below 50% health, all Old Republic allies reduce their cooldowns by 1 and gain 10% turn meter. That's level 6 I'm going to recommend here. Just getting more turns out there, reducing cooldowns, trying to get Carth to get as many specials out as possible to trigger all those damage over times that you're going to have out there, I think is really just going to be the key to this. I don't see this being a defensive team, honestly. I think it's going to be more of an offensive team that punches up, because I do think there are enough ways to get around max health damage, which damage over times are that, and dispel those or get tenacity up so you resist those damage over times, that I don't think it's going to be a defensive team, but I could be wrong on that, so we are speculating without having the gameplay quite yet. So the level 3 I'm going to recommend is that whenever light side allies inflict a debuff on an enemy, same one as last time, they deal that 2% of enemies max health. that's going to be really, really good on this team because of how many debuffs you're going to be applying, especially those dots. That max health damage is going to eat away at teams. Again, this is going to be one of the best, maybe the best Datacron to get during the set. The next Datacron I'm going to talk about is Jolee. I'm recommending the classic Jedi Knight Revan comp here. I also think this has potential to work with Jedi Master Luke after the Plo Koon Datacron goes away, because of the fact that Jolee's level 9 is whenever another ally attacks during Jolee Bindo's turn, Jolee and that ally gain 25% turn meter, limit once per turn. Just with the special that Jedi Master Luke grants, you're able to call others to assist. Jolee also has an ability that calls the others to assist. If you're using Jedi Knight Revan lead, then he can call others to assist. I think that's just going to be really, really solid with him. So Jedi Knight Revan lead will work great with this after the Plo Koon Datacron goes away, or if you're not using the Plo Koon Datacron, if you're using that with maybe like Jedi Master Kenobi, then I think you could certainly slot this in to use with Jedi Master Luke instead. With that, the level 6 I'm going to recommend is that whenever Old Republic allies target another ally with an ability, just like we mentioned, Revan gives us unique Jedi Master Luke gives a unique ability that can call others to assist. They both gain 5% defense, max health, max protection, and offense stacking until the end of battle. Keep in mind that that is for both of them, and it only requires an Old Republic ally to target another person. So, specifically with the Jedi Master Luke comp I wanted to talk about here, if you do something like Jedi Master Luke with Jedi Knight Revan Bastila Jolee, and then you keep spamming his unique, I can't remember the name of it, that Jedi Master Luke gives to call Jedi Master Luke to assist, he's just going to be stacking defense, max health, max protection, and offense. It's going to make your Jedi Master Luke extremely tanky. So keep that in mind. That could be a really good bet to go with Jedi Master Luke. I'm also going to recommend the level 3 of whenever light side allies gain a buff, they recover 2% health and protection. Jedi just in general like this a lot because they have so many buffs that they spread around. Like I mentioned, Jedi Master Luke has his unique buffs that he spreads. Grandmaster Yoda's on this team here. Grandmaster Yoda spreads a ton of buffs. I think that's just going to give you the sustain you need till you stack that defense, health, and protection and offense until you can just literally kill just about anything under Jedi Master Luke, I think. And then under Jedi Knight Revan, I think you're really going to be able to punch up. So either way you want to run this, I think both are going to be really good. Next team we're going to talk about is Starkiller. So, Starkiller, I'm recommending just the classic comp with Starkiller. Visas and Juhani are the ideal 4th and 5th members, but I don't even have them relic on my account yet, so I'm still running Old Ben and Scavenger Ray. But whatever you have is your Starkiller team. I don't think you need to change it up too much. Whenever another ally uses an ability on their turn, Starkiller is going to assist, dealing 50% more damage, limit once per turn. This is kind of like a version of his unique in Grand Arena, his Omicron, just kind of into a Datacron. So we're going to be able to take this into Territory War. He's going to be able to assist, except for it's probably a little stronger because think about the fact that whenever Mara Jade takes her turns at the beginning of battle, right, she's going to do her buff dispel. She spreads a bunch of debuffs, and because of Palpatine lead, she gains a bunch of turn meter. So then she does all of her staggers and gets another turn. So Starkiller's assisting on each one of those. And then she's using her basic and calling Palpatine to assist, and Starkiller's going to assist there too. So I think that's going to be incredibly good. This is another one that it's like, if you have Starkiller, I would highly recommend you go get this. It's going to make your Rey battles, I think, incredibly easy. He's going to get to his ultimate incredibly quickly. As far as the level 6 for UFUs, I'm going to recommend that you get the whenever a dark side or light side online force user critically hits an enemy, dispel all debuffs on themselves and gain 5% turn meter. Whenever a dark side or light side online force user uses a special ability against an enemy with at least 3 debuffs, reduce that enemy's max health by 5%. Whenever a dark side or light side online force user uses a special ability when they have at least 3 buffs that can be dispelled, gain 5% max health. You're going to be proccing those last 2 a ton, the reduced max health, the gain max health, and that turn meter dispelling debuffs on a crit hit. Starkiller's going to be critting all the time, especially if he's assisting on everybody's turn. It's going to be hard to keep debuffs on him at all. And then same with Mara Jade. I think it's going to be really hard to keep debuffs on her. She's going to have a ton of debuffs that she's spreading around, so she's going to be reducing people's max health. And then I think that no matter what other two you're really using in there, they'll benefit slightly from it. But really, I mean, Starkiller and Mar Jade are going to be the engine of this team that I think are really going to just drive it. So the level 3 I'm recommending is that dark side allies recover 2% health whenever they critically hit an enemy. I know a lot of people don't love the recover health and protection because of healing immunity or shock or something, but keep in mind, because of the level 6, you're going to be able to dispel that constantly. And so I think that having that extra recovery is going to be really good for this team. You could also make the argument for the level 3 that gives you additional max health and protection for dark side allies. Just since this isn't a full dark side team, I thought maybe the recovery might be a little bit better. Again, it's going to remain to be tested. I think if you get either, you can probably run it with it. You don't have to get this level 3. In general, for this set, the level 3s are not as important as the 6s and 9s, and that's generally the case for most sets. So, moving on. Next, I want to talk about the Inquisitors. I think you're going to run Classic Inquisitors. I don't think this is changing the comp at all. We're going to talk about Marok a little bit later. I do think there's if they don't fix his bug where he's able to stop the Phoenix counter, then I think you probably want to slot him in instead of 8th Brother, at least until Balin gets here. But for the time being, I think that you're just going to run Classic Inquisitors. The Grand Inquisitor is going to provide that while Grand Inquisitor is active, Inquisitorius allies are immune to fear and stun, and whenever an ally or enemy is defeated, Inquisitorius allies gain 50% turn meter damage immunity for 1 turn, which can't be copied, and their cooldowns are reset. This is going to be incredibly good. Just the immunity to fear alone, I think, is going to kill the Malgus counter. I don't think you're going to be able to use Malgus or Darth Revan, for those that don't have Malgus, against Inquisitors at all. I think it's going to completely shut that down. You really kind of rely on fear to just keep that team in check, to keep Inquisitors in check while you're kind of working through them. So it's going to be really hard. And even if you get Reva down, they have a lot of comeback potential with them gaining that 50% turn meter, that damage immunity, having their cooldowns reset. It's going to be tough, even if you get Reva down without those teams. And then if you slot in Marok here, you definitely shut down Phoenix, and this Datacron itself might shut down Phoenix itself. So mainly because of this level 6. It's the same one as the Starkiller one. Whenever a dark side or light side unaligned force user critically hits an enemy, they're dispelling all debuffs on themselves and gaining 5% turn meter. Whenever dark side or light side unaligned force user uses a special ability against an enemy with at least 3 debuffs, reduce that enemy's max health by 5%. So many debuffs on the Inquisitor team. Purge is so hard to get rid of. You're going to be reducing max health left and right. It's going to be extremely difficult to keep your max health. Whenever dark side or light side unaligned force user uses a special ability when they have at least 3 buffs that can be dispelled, gain 5% max health. I don't know if you'll proc that one as much, maybe on a couple of the Inquisitors, but definitely not on all of them. But that first one, the reducing max health, for sure. I think there's not really an argument on the level 3 on this one, and this one might actually be pretty important, is to get the dark side allies gain 15% max health and max protection for each other dark side ally. This is going to make Reva a freaking tank. Whenever this one's around, tanks especially, just love to have this on their kits. Highly recommend getting this. Next, we're talking about the Maul Datacron. This one is a sneaky one that I think a lot of people are going to maybe think, oh, it's pretty basic, but this is going to make Lord Vader extremely good, I think. First time Maul is defeated, they're revived with 100% health, gain health over time, 75% for 2 turns, and take a bonus turn. On the surface, not that great, but what really helps this team, I think, is going to be this level 6. That it's the same one we've been talking about. Whenever a dark side or light side unaligned force user critically hits an enemy, dispel all debuffs on themselves and gain 5% turn meter. Whenever a dark side or light side unaligned force user uses a special ability against an enemy with at least 3 debuffs, reduce that enemy's max health by 5%. That is going to be incredible for Maul. Maul likes to spam special abilities, and Lord Vader likes to spread a lot of debuffs. So if you just spam that onto somebody, you could do 25% with all 5 stacks of what's it called? Frenzy? Or it's not called Frenzy. I forget what it's called. All 5 stacks of your thing, and unload it all onto one person. You could reduce your max health by 5%. You could reduce the whole team's max health by 5% by spreading it around. Whenever a dark side or light side unaligned force user uses a special ability when they have at least 3 buffs that can be dispelled, gain 5% max health. I also think you could proc that a good bit with Maul, with planning out your cooldowns and stuff like that. So increasing Maul's max health, making him harder to kill. Then if you do kill him, he gets revived. You're also going to have the level 3 of increasing your max health and max protection by 15% for each other dark side ally. That's going to make him tankier, and he's reviving. So you already want to focus down Maul in this team. You're going to try to, then he's going to revive, and it's going to be difficult. I think this is going to be a really hard team to deal with. I'm putting Ninth Sister in here as a recommendation as well. If you can get Ninth Sister onto your Lord Vader team, if you have her, I think that's really going to be helpful. Just having the extra UFU there to benefit from that level 6. Reducing max health wherever you can, getting some extra purge out wherever you can, I think is really going to be helpful. I don't think it's like a make or break on this, but I think it's just a helpful thing to have. So if you're kind of trying to debate on which tank you want to put in there, or if you want to slot Piet in there, or how you want to go about it, I think Ninth Sister is personally going to be the best pick for this team if you have it. But again, not making or breaking it. Next, let's talk about Malicos. So Malicos is decent here. I actually don't think his is as good as it reads on paper, or as much as you might think it's good. Really what this team is benefiting from is that level 6 that we've been talking about, that whenever they critically hit, they're dispelling those buffs and gaining 5% turn meters. And whenever they hit an enemy with at least 3 debuffs, they're reducing that enemy's max health by 5%. And whenever they use a special ability with at least 3 buffs that can be dispelled, they're gaining that 5% max health. Those are the things that are really helpful here. Malicos getting the extra stacks of Edge of Madness is really good. The resilient defense is okay. The reason I say it's okay is because if you get resilient defense and proc a ray like a sudden whirlwind or something, you could accidentally end up getting your Malicos hit with a sudden whirlwind when you really wanted crew to take it instead, and you might end up getting your Malicos killed. So I don't think that's going to happen too much, especially because it's mainly at the start of the battle that he's going to get those resilient defense. But if you proc sudden whirlwind too quickly on the ray counter, you could end up killing your Malicos. So the level 6 is extremely good for this team. The level 9 is also very good. Getting him those extra stacks of madness, and every time he gets that to 20 stacks, he's gaining that bonus turn and having his cooldowns reset. Those are both incredibly good. I just worry that the resilient defense might screw you over, so I would just watch out for that. I'm also recommending the recover 2% health whenever they critically hit an enemy. I think this is going to help Malicos stay alive for longer. I think this is going to help crew stay alive for longer. You can make the argument for a couple of other ones. I personally like this one the best, but again, level 3s in this set are the least important. If you get that level 6 and that level 9, you're in business, and the level 3 is debatable on which one's going to be best here. I want to talk about the Kylo Ren Datacron. This is one I have a big caveat for. I think it could be used with SLKR to give you an extra like pseudo tank just because of how hard he's going to be to kill. However, if you're using him with SLKR, you need to avoid using his first special. You don't want to get that extra turn meter because of the fact that Kylo Ren, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren really punishes you getting that extra turn meter. So what I actually think is more likely since making this graphic, and I talked about the potential solo here, but I think this is actually probably the more likely outcome now, is having him solo. So if you're going to have him solo, I put stars next to the one that I would recommend. If you're going to have him in the SLKR comp, I put there's no stars next to those two. So if you're soloing with him, you want the one that whenever he critically hits, he's dispelling his debuffs and gaining 5% turn meter. He's going to gain retribution a lot based on his kit. Then if you can get him to gain that extra turn meter whenever he attacks somebody, that's going to be great. He's going to dispel his own debuffs, so you can't really get healing immunity. That's going to be really nice. And then he spreads enough debuffs that I think you might be able to proc some of that, reducing max health. Certainly not going to get enough buffs if he's by himself to gain that max health. But I just think critically hitting, dispelling the debuffs is going to be really good to keep him alive. And then if he's by himself, I think you want to recover that health whenever you're critically hitting. So you're going to mod him for crit chance, crit damage probably, and then make sure he's recovering health and dispelling his own debuffs every time he crits somebody. This could be a really decent solo cron that I think a lot of people are going to sleep on because they're like, oh, that's not that great, but he's just going to be so freaking tanky and harder to kill, and most people have him at relic 7 at least for SLKR. So having those extra, the damage received being reduced by 15% per the max health per relic amplifier, so 7 times 5, so 35% max health and max protection, and the damage he's getting received reduced by 15%. That's just going to make him so tanky and hard to kill. So I would look out for this as like a solo cron for maybe things like Ewoks for sure, things like leftover rebels, maybe even rebel fighters, but maybe not rebel fighters. They probably run too much of a Terminator train around him. Or even like a two-man, if you throw him with like a Phasma lead and then throw him in there. Or in Territory Wars, throwing him with like a Phasma Omicron with this, I think could be really good. There's a lot of options with this, and so I think a lot of people are going to sleep on this and just say it's not a good Datacron, but I think there's obviously potential here, and I think that the first time each unaligned force user ally falls below 50% health, they gain damage immunity for 1 turn and gain health seal up for 2 turns. This, I think, is going to be really solid for SLKR in general. Keeping him basically getting like an extra ultimate there where he like is immune to damage for a little bit. I think it's gonna be really solid. Getting crew, the same thing if you're running crew in this team instead of with your seer, if you don't have seer, or if you're just running crew here, could be really good as well. Basically saving your tank once could be really good. The other thing I'm going to recommend is that if you're running an SLKR comp, you just go ahead and get one of these level 3s that increases the max health and protection. You want one of these on every single dark side team you have, and this is no exception. So next, we're going to talk about the Hondo Datacron. Hondo Datacron is really, really good. I just don't know how many different teams it's going to fit in. I'm going to recommend you just run it with Dash, but whatever team you're running Hondo in right now, throw this Datacron on there and you are going to do incredible. I recommended this this comp here specifically because Kira and Mando, Beskar Armor Mando, both have the mercenary tag. You get the benefits of the mercenary level 6 on both of them. So that's why I'm recommending it here. Dash also has the mercenary tag, so he's going to benefit from this. This level 3 paired with Dash is going to be incredible. Whenever light side allies inflict a debuff on an enemy, they deal damage to that enemy equal to 2% of that enemy's max health. So Dash is doing 6% max health damage to all enemies every time he uses his AoE. Plus his AoE hits like a truck already. Then you add on this level 6 that's absolutely busted. Whenever a mercenary ally inflicts a debuff on an enemy during their turn, they deal bonus damage equal to 10% of that enemy's max health. That's another 30% damage, max health damage to every single person every time Dash uses his AoE. It is going to be incredible, and I honestly even debated separating this out and putting this level 6 and this level 9 with Dash and putting Hondo in a separate team, just because I think that Dash is just going to absolutely annihilate some teams. You know how hard Dash hits already. You add on 36% max health damage onto his AoE to every single person on the other team. He's going to hit like a freaking truck. Hondo being in here, he's going to gain his ransom so much faster, deal extra damage, especially whenever he uses his basic. That's part of why I put Kira in here as well. She can call him to assist. Bam is here mostly for survivability. Vandor's because Vandor's so annoying in this team. You could totally sub out like L3 for Kira. I put L3 on the Shorty team, so that's kind of why I was trying to do something different here, but I know a lot of people don't have Kira, so L3 can work there. You could even run like Quill IG-11 in this team instead of maybe Vandor and Kira if you don't have them. Either way, Dash with this level 3 and level 6 are going to be incredible. If you have Hondo added on top of that, you're going to be doing some serious damage with this team. All right, Dengar. This is my option 1 for Dengar. Dengar is a really strong Datacron, maybe the strongest Datacron on the set, honestly. If that might be a hot take. It's certainly up there as one of the best ones in this set. And so here's my option 1 for Dengar. First is just a straight up bounty hunter team with Dengar. If you, and this is not the team I would recommend exactly, but I think just like leftover bounty hunters with Dengar, depending on your roster, could be extremely strong. I actually put Cad Bane in lead here very intentionally. It's because Cad Bane in the lead gives you additional potency, and when you get contract, reduces tenacity. And in order to get contract, all you have to do is inflict a lot of debuffs, or deal damage to enemies with debuffs. Well, if Dengar's getting all these bonus turns, he's going to deal damage a lot of times. If you mod him for potency, he's going to get a lot of debuffs out there. Then you should get contract pretty freaking quickly. And then this level 6 of whenever a mercenary ally inflicts a debuff, they deal bonus damage equal to 10% of that enemy's max health. I think just maximizing the number of debuffs you do could be incredibly good. We're also going to just add some tankiness from the level 3, and Dengar gaining the bonus turn. Sorry, I didn't even read his level 9. Whenever an enemy takes a turn, Dengar takes a bonus turn. During this bonus turn, Dengar deals 100% more damage. This bonus turn can't trigger the effect on enemies. So basically, you can't just get in an infinite loop between your Dengars. This is going to pair incredibly well with just debuffs. I think just spamming debuffs out with this team. You're going to get contract incredibly quickly on whatever team you put Dengar on if you're putting him on a bounty hunter team. So you don't have to use Cad Bane. Whatever team you have that you put Dengar on, he's going to help you get contract so much faster. And the more debuffs you can get on that team, the better. Because if you spam out those debuffs, you will just be whittling away at the enemy team so quickly. I do recommend putting him with mostly dark side mercenary bounty hunters, which is why I've picked these characters, because they're all dark side mercenary bounty hunters. But I'm going to talk about Aurra Sing in a second here. So if you're going to run her on a separate team, then maybe you slot her into a separate team, and then you throw a different bounty hunter like Bosk or something into this team. And maybe you run Bosk lead or whatever. I don't know. But highly recommend this combination. Get as many debuffs out there as possible, and just spam them with Dengar. I also want to call out a potential for Dengar to solo teams or to two-man teams with Watt. If you give him tank tech where he recovers 30% protection every time he starts his turn and dispels all debuffs on himself, I think that you throw that on Dengar. Dengar gets a bonus turn every time someone takes a turn. Then he's basically just constantly recovering 30% protection. You're not going to be able to kill him, or at least not very easily. So that's something I wanted to call out here. I don't know if that's going to be something that comes out as working, but certainly worth testing. And I don't think there's any different recommendations I would really give. Maybe swapping out this level 3 for something else, but I think the other strategy still remains the same. One thing I forgot to mention was the second option for Dengar, and I think that's actually running him with Balin. And this is a bit of speculation since Balin's not out yet, and Balin could come with his own Datacron or something, but if he doesn't, I do think this is the next best option for Dengar. Pairing that level 6 of 10% max health damage whenever we flick a debuff goes amazing with Boba Fett Scion of Jango. Also, Shin Marak also spread a bunch of debuffs. The caveat here is that level 6 could want to go to the Soldiers of Fortune. We just don't know how well that's going to synergize, and we know that Boba Fett Scion of Jango is going to be spreading a bunch of debuffs, and this team's just going to have a good amount of debuffs. So that's kind of my caveat here, is that it very well and likely will want that level 6. But as it stands right now, I think you can run this as a team with Boba Fett Scion of Jango in the lead. You throw Dengar in there and then run any other mercenary as the 5th. And I actually think you have a somewhat decent mercenary team, or maybe even slot Bam into the lead in this team and run that for the time being. So you do have some options if you're working on the Balin requirements, but don't want to throw Dengar with your bounty hunters, or you want to do this instead and run Aurra Sing with your mercenary bounty hunters. And the reason I think this could actually work really well is because you read this and you probably think, oh, it's not that great. But whenever an enemy stun, Aurra Sing takes a bonus turn, pair that with the level 6 of whenever a mercenary ally uses a special ability during their turn, they stun an enemy for 1 turn, which can't be evaded or resisted. You basically get like a budget Dengar Datacron with Aurra Sing by just spamming out special abilities as much as possible. You just have to have as many mercenary bounty hunters on the same team as possible, and then you just stun as much as you can. Aurra Sing gains a ton of bonus turns, and then in order to boost that turn meter train even more, I'm recommending the level 3 of whenever a dark side ally uses a special ability, gain 15% turn meter. So that kind of closes out my biggest winners, and we'll move on to talking about the level 3s, 6s, and 9s individually. All right, let's talk about each one of these level 3s, level 6s, and level 9 Datacron affixes individually. Rank them from bad, situational, and great. So bad are just overall, they're not really useful. They may have like one team they could do something on, but in general, I'm not going to recommend it. Situational is, depending on the team, could be very good. Great is that almost any team would like to use it. Now, I recommended specific ones for specific teams already, so I may put some in situational or I probably won't put them in bad, that I recommended earlier, but don't just think, oh, because I put it in great, I should get it over the other one that's situational. I specifically recommended those level 3s and level 6s for those teams, so if it was situational, then I was talking about the situation in which it was applicable. So anyways, first one we're starting off is whenever light side allies inflict a debuff on an enemy, they deal 2% max health damage to that enemy. This is situational. I recommend this actually quite a few times, but this is situational because not every team is, especially light side teams, I feel like, are inflicting so many debuffs. If you're in a debuff heavy team, though, this is probably one of the best Datacrons you can have. Otherwise, I think there's probably some better options. The next one, light side allies start the battle with protection up for 20% for 2 turns. This is not very good. I'll just say it. There are some situations where maybe it could be okay, but I'm just going to say it's bad because I just think there's better options in this set. Your protection up doesn't say can't be dispelled, so it can easily be dispelled right at the start of the battle. It's not really helping you that much. Whenever light side allies start their turn with at least 3 debuffs that can be dispelled, they gain tenacity up for 2 turns. If this dispelled them and then gave you tenacity up, it would be really good. But because it's just giving you tenacity up, I'm going to say it's bad. I think there's just better options. The next one, whenever a light side ally gains a buff, they recover 2% health and protection. This is one that I'll actually say is pretty good. I think that this is very applicable for most teams. Most teams are spreading around a good amount of buffs, and getting some extra health and protection recovery is really solid on just about any team. Whenever light side allies use a special ability, they gain evasion up, health steal up, and health up for 2 turns. Again, this is a situational one. It can be nice if you have teams that benefit from buffs, or teams that can do things with buffs or spread them around, like a Grandmaster Yoda or something. But in general, I just think you have better options. So I'm going to recommend whenever light side ally gains a buff, they recover 2% health and protection for most of your light side teams. Any ones that have a high amount of debuffs, then this becomes better, and I would say get the whenever light side allies inflict a debuff, then they deal that extra max health damage. But in general, the light side level 3s are not particularly great this set. Now let's take a look at our dark side level 3s and see how these stack up. So dark side allies recover 2% health whenever they critically hit an enemy. This is actually pretty good, but I'm going to put it situational just because dark side actually has some better level 3s than light side did this time around. But if some of the situations where these other level 3s that I'm recommending as great are maybe not applicable, or you just need it for certain teams. I recommended it for a couple of teams like UFUs that can dispel their debuffs to get that extra sustain. It certainly can be good, but I think you just have better options here. The first time a dark side tank ally is defeated, revive them with 100% health, reset their cooldowns, and they gain a bonus turn limit once per battle. I'm going to put this in great, but I'm going to put it like towards the low end of great. There's a lot of teams that can really benefit from this, and if there wasn't another level 3 in this set, I would say this is incredibly good. But there's another level 3 that I just think irks this out, and it's just so good that I hesitate to recommend anything other than that. So I'm going to recommend this as a great, but not as great as the next one that we're going to talk about. Nope, not this one, but as one we're going to talk about in just a second. So next, we're going to talk about dark side allies gain 10% turn meter whenever an ally or enemy is defeated. This is just bad. It made sense in the last set to have this because we had Night Sister Datacrons, and Night Sisters do benefit from this. But other than that, it's about the only team that really benefits from this. You're only gaining it at most 50% turn meter throughout the entire battle. Or I guess technically you could get 80% turn meter, I guess, because you have 4 of yours die and 4 of them die. And then you're down to a 1v1, but it's just not going to give you much in most battles, and I would just prefer to have literally just about any other level 3 over this one. The next one we're talking about is the best level 3 in this set. At the start of the encounter, dark side allies gain 50% max health and max protection for each other dark side ally. That is incredible. That is 60% max health and max protection for every single dark side ally on your team, because it's each other. That's just incredible. You can't pass that up for most teams. That's why I say like this tank one is just not quite to the same level as this one, especially when you're running full dark side teams. Now, if you're running like an UFU team with Kylo Ren unmasked, then maybe having the dark side tank revive could be nice, but because we have that UFU that dispels debuffs, I just think recovering the health on that kind of team would be better. So reviving a tank can be good. I liked this one a lot with like my Grievous team. I thought did really well with it. Having it on like even maybe like Lord Vader, I'm going to recommend the UFU one. The extra health and protection, because it's going to be better than reviving a tank. So you see what I mean? Like, it's just a lot of the dark side teams that I'm thinking of. You just would rather your tank be tankier than revive. especially because if they can prevent the revive in any way, then they kind of screw you over out of that level 3. So anyways, recommend that 15% max health and max protection for just about all of your darks. Any team that's full dark side will not hurt to have that on it. Last one, whenever a dark side ally uses a special ability, they gain 15% turn meter. This is situational. It can be good. It can help you with a turn meter train in certain teams. I could see like an Imp Troopers even wanting to use this. Maybe if you only have like one Imp Trooper that has decent speed, then maybe you could use this to help boost the turn meter. Maybe, I don't know. It's just not as good as some of the other ones. And thinking about it more, it's like I would just rather have the extra tankiness on my troopers so they don't get bursted down by anything. So for the most part, just stick to these first two. With the UFUs that can dispel their debuffs a lot, then I think it makes sense to go for that recovering health. Other than that, and it maybe we'll even put this down to bad, but in front of this one. It's just not relevant with all the other level 3s. I mean, it's not a bad level 3 by itself, but just in the context of what else we have here, it's not going to be as good. Moving on to our level 6s, we're going to start with the mercenaries. So at the start of each of their turns, mercenary allies have 2% offense equal to the number of stacks of soldier fortune they have until they are defeated. Whenever an enemy attacks out of turn, they take bonus true damage, which can't be evaded and can't defeat them. Two things with this. First is Soldier of Fortune is a very rare buff at the moment, and this will probably go into great once Balin's here, because it'll be great on the Balin team, or at least it'll go into situational. But just because of how hard it is to spread Soldier of Fortune right now, it's going to go into the bad category. The other thing with it is it doesn't say how much the true damage is for attacks out of turn, because whenever an enemy attacks out of turn, they take bonus true damage, which can't be evaded and can't defeat them. That could be a really good option for Geos, to basically throw on any team that just has one mercenary so that the Datacron is active. You might be able to have like this really cheap or budget Geo counter by just throwing this with any one mercenary and then a bunch of other random characters that can just clean it up. So there's actually potential there for that to be decent. But a level 6 just to defeat Geos, and not that great. So for now, it's going in bad. Very well, this could go up when we see Balin's kit and we actually see how much Soldier of Fortune can get out. But right now, 2% offense, it's just not as good as some of these other mercenary data affixes. So next, whenever a mercenary ally inflicts a debuff on an enemy during their turn, they deal bonus damage equal to 10% of that enemy's max health, which can't be evaded. This is the best level 6, in my opinion, for this set. Maybe at all, because mercenary allies, a lot of them have a ton of debuffs they can inflict. Even some of them have debuffs that can't be resisted. We talked about Dasher and Dar. Boba Fett Sign of Jango just spreads a ton of debuffs, so this can help with him. Most bounty hunters that are mercenaries have debuffs, at least in somewhere in their kit. A lot of them on their basics, so when you do swarm attacks, you get a ton of max health damage. It's just all around really, really solid. Even if you don't have a lot of mercenaries that are bounty hunters, I think if you have a bounty hunter team, this is going to be an affix you want to go grab. And in general, it's just really, really, really solid. Next, we're talking about whenever mercenary allies use a special ability during their turn, they stun target enemy for one turn, which can't be evaded or resisted. I talked about the use case for this when we were talking about the level 9s. I think Aura Sing paired with this is going to be incredibly good. Outside of that, I don't see this being incredibly valuable, because I just think that this other level 6 is better in every aspect. So situational, could be good in some certain battles where you really need to stun somebody and keep them under lock. But outside of that, I think that you're better off just going for that other level 6 that max health damage. At the start of their first turn, mercenary allies gain offense equal to 400% of their current defense. Then they lose 50% defense. This is actually pretty good, and if we didn't have these other two, I would say it's really good. But because we have the max health damage, because we have the special ability stunning, I don't know that I'm going to recommend this. There is a specific use case, specifically against Lord Vader. I think that this could be good with like your Fennec and your Bam. So I do think that team could use this. So I am going to put it in situational, that it could be good. I just worry that losing that 50% defense could make that counter even harder rather than the extra offense, which obviously will help, but you're really going to need some good sustain if you're going to run that. So it's kind of a catch-22 there. At the start of the battle, mercenary allies gain retribution for 3 turns, which can't be dispelled. This is just bad. It's the worst one here, even worse than the Soldier of Fortune. You're going to lose it after a few turns. I just don't think that this is anywhere close to any of these other ones, especially if you get dazed on you. You just can't counterattack now, and daze is so common that I just think that there's a lot of better options for you. So, yeah. All right, now we're going to talk about our UFUs. So, whenever a dark side or light side unaligned force user critically hits an enemy, dispel all debuffs on themselves and gain 5% turn meter. Whenever a dark side or light side unaligned force user uses a special ability against an enemy with at least 3 debuffs, reduce that enemy's max health by 5%. Whenever a dark side or light side unaligned force user uses a special ability when they have at least 3 buffs that can be dispelled, gain 5% max health. This is the best UFU affix for this set. I think it is the one you want on pretty much every single team. The one team I think that you can make an argument you don't want it on is SWGOH, just because that extra turn meter might screw you over. But I think that because of the max health gain in the kit or in the affix, it honestly might still be the best option. I'm going to highlight another one that I think might be slightly better, but I still think this is going to be incredibly good for that team and every other UFU team for sure. The next one we're talking about is whenever a debuff on an enemy expires, unaligned force user allies gain 2% potency and tenacity, stacking until the end of the battle. This is just bad. 2% is nothing, and also you're just not going to gain enough over time. Your debuffs aren't going to expire that often. It's just not good, especially when you compare it to some of the other ones. The first time each unaligned force user ally falls below 50% health, they gain damage immunity for 1 turn and gain health steal up for 2 turns. This would be really good if the damage immunity was not able to be dispelled, but it can be dispelled, it seems like. And if it was a different threshold than Rey's, if it wasn't at 50% health, which hers is also at 50% health, then it could be really solid in the Rey team. Like if this was at 45% or 30% or something, where you could try to proc 2 damage immunities. It would be really good with that team, but unfortunately that's not the case, so this is going in situational. This is the one I would recommend for SLKR if you're getting too much turn meter from this first one, which may be the case. So for SLKR, I'm going to be steering towards this one for now, but I'm going to keep in mind that that other one might be good if your kind of max health gains can outpace your max health losses from the extra turn meter that from SLKR's kit. Unaligned force user allies start the battle with damage immunity for 2 turns, which can't be copied. I could see this on offense being situational on certain teams that don't have a lot of buff dispels in order to kind of cheese out. In order to kind of cheese out a fake tank or something like that, make somebody into a tank where they just keep hitting somebody with damage immunity. But it's so situational that it's not what I would recommend, and I'm not going to be shooting for it for any of my teams. Whenever a unaligned force user ally defeats an enemy, they take a bonus turn. This is another one. I'm going to say it's situational. For me, I feel like if I have killed an enemy with my SLKR, with my Starkiller, I've gotten past the hardest part of the battle, so I don't really need to take a bonus turn at that point. So I would just rather have my saving grace of damage immunity or all of the extra benefits of this one rather than having an extra turn after I kill somebody. Lastly, for the level 6s, we're talking about Old Republic. So Old Republic has some decent level 6s, and the first one we're going to talk about, whenever an Old Republic ally defeats an enemy, they refresh the cooldown of all Old Republic allies. Like I talked about with the last set, if I've defeated an enemy, I feel like I've already gotten past the hardest part, especially with a team like Old Republic. I'm either getting rolled over or I'm rolling over them, and especially with these teams that aren't the greatest, let's be honest. So I'm going to put it in bad. I just don't think it's as good as some of the other ones we're going to talk about here in a second. Whenever an Old Republic ally grants a buff to another ally, that ally gains 10% turn meter. This is actually a pretty common thing in Old Republic kits. I don't know that I can put it at the top of great. I'll put it kind of the bottom of great, where this is one of the ones I'm going to recommend, and there's not that many Old Republic characters, so I feel like it kind of has to go up at great, because I don't see a lot of situational use when there's only like 2 Old Republic teams you can really run. But the reason I'm going to put this at great is because that other ally doesn't have to be Old Republic. So if you're using somebody like Jedi Knight Revan, if you're using somebody like Jolee, if you're using somebody like Bastila, she's going to grant turn meter to the other ally, even if that ally is not Old Republic. So that's why I'm going to put this up at great. Whenever an Old Republic ally recovers health, they recover protection equal to the amount of health recovered. Old Republic allies can't recover protection this way more than once per turn, or if their health was full. You just have so many other ways to recover health and protection that this is just kind of situational. If you need the extra recovery, I could see it being useful, but for the most part, I'm not recommending it for any of the Old Republic teams, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this come up as an option. I just don't think it's going to be the primary option with some of the other level 6s. First time each Old Republic ally falls below 50% health, all Old Republic allies reduce their cooldowns by 1 and gain 10% turn meter. I actually think this is pretty good. I'm going to put it actually behind this one, so maybe I am going to actually move this one up to the top of great. I just think it's going to be really good in the Carth team. You want Carth's cooldowns to be reduced as much as possible, so having him be able to reduce his cooldowns is amazing. Gaining that extra turn meter is going to be amazing, and then also kind of almost acting like a mini savior where you're able to just get more turns. When you start losing health, maybe like when Zalbar or Juhani starts to get low, Juhani hops under stealth, she gains turn meter, reduces cooldowns, certainly could be helpful in that team. But I don't know. When I'm thinking of the use of Jolee, Bastila, and Jedi Knight Revan with this granting the buff affix, it just outweighs this one for me with that Carth team when you don't consider Carth's level 9. Whenever Old Republic allies target another ally with an ability during their turn, they both gain 5% defense, max health, max protection, and offense stacking until the end of battle. This is the one I was thinking of this was. So this is actually moving back down to the bottom. The reason this is just a better version of this, I feel like. Targeting another ally with an ability is a very common thing in Old Republic. Think about Basila's first special. Think about Jedi Knight Revan's unique ability that he gives, Jedi Knight Revan's turn meter swap, Jolee's heal. Think about the unique buff that Jedi Master Luke gives, or the unique ability Jedi Master Luke gives to all of his Jedi allies under a Jedi team. You're targeting other allies with all of those abilities. 5% defense, max health, max protection, and offense is incredibly good. So getting all of those benefits, I think, is outweighing the ability of the extra turn meter, but certainly getting this one, you don't have to re-roll it right away. You could certainly try to work with it with the Jolee level 9 or with your Shorty team, which is what I'm recommending you run as the level 6 with that team. So moving on to the level 9s, I got to keep these on the right side of the screen here because they're long, a lot of them, and you're not going to be able to read them if I put them on the where we had all the other ones. So instead, I'll get you guys a little Datacron picture over here, and we'll start looking at all of these level 9s. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly since I already talked about most of the level 9s earlier in the video, but if in case you're wondering, hey, why didn't you mention this one in the specific level 9 breakdowns, it's probably because it's bad. Anyways, Jolee. Whenever another ally attacks during Jolee Bindo's turn, Jolee and that ally gain 25% turn meter. This is situational. It's not going to be the best Datacron in this set, so I'm throwing it in situational. Marjade. At the start of any other non-Emperor Palpatine ally's turn, Marjane gains a stack of Loyal Hand. Whenever an ally with less than 100% turn meter gains bonus turn meter, they gain 3% critical chance and critical damage stacking for 1 turn. Whenever an enemy is inflicted with shock, they take damage equal to 10% of their max health. This one is going in situational as well. The situation where you'd want to use this is if you don't have Starkiller. If you don't have Starkiller, this one could be very good. But if you do have Starkiller, you're just going to run Starkiller's Datacron. Carth, the absolute massive amount of text that we have here. We already talked about this one in depth, but he's gaining max health, max protection, potency, and 15% turn meter whenever another character ends their turn. And whenever he uses basic, he attacks 2 more times. Whenever he resists, whenever an Old Republic ally resists a debuff, they dispel all debuffs on themselves and gain 10% tenacity stacking until the end of battle. And whenever an Old Republic ally is dazed, they dispel it. Whenever they dispel daze, they gain 15% turn meter. Whenever Carth uses a special ability, he triggers the damage of all damage over time debuffs on enemies. Whenever an enemy is defeated, Carth gains 25% offense stacking and critical damage stacking until the end of battle. His cooldowns are reset and he gains 100% turn meter. This is good. I don't need to say more. We talked about this more in depth. You can go back to the chapter if you wanted to see what my recommendations are for it and the teams I think you run with it. But it's very good. This is if you have Carth relic and you have your Old Republic relic, this is a must get for you. Juhani, whenever Juhani loses taunt, remove 50% turn meter from all enemies. That turn meter loss can't even, it doesn't even say can't be resisted. It's just bad. It's just so you don't roll the Carth one on your first try. Grand Inquisitor, while Grand Inquisitor is active, Inquisitorius allies are immune to fear and stun, and whenever an ally or enemy is defeated, Inquisitorius allies gain 50% turn meter damage immunity for 1 turn, which can't be copied, and their cooldowns are reset. Again, we talked about it earlier. This one is incredibly good. Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren has 5% max health and 5% max protection per relic amplifier level, and damage they receive which is decreased by 15%. This is situational. We talked about the potential solo for this. If you want to look at that, don't think it's going to go with an SLKR team, but potentially. And instead, I think you'll solo with him or 2-man with him with Phasma in order to just kind of have him be like a unkillable, just ramping his offense with the Zeta, and slowly over time just killing everybody. T3 M4, whenever T3 M4 uses a basic ability on their turn, other allies gain 25% turn meter. This is just bad because if you're going to get an Old Republic one, you don't want this one. You want Shorty or you want Carth. You don't want this one. So just because of the other ones that are in this, I don't see any situation where you'd want to go for this one. Whenever Jango Fett is dealt damage, reflect 20% of the damage dealt back onto the attackers as true damage, which can't be evaded. This damage can't defeat enemies. This is situational. If you don't have Orsing, you don't have Dengar Relic, but you do have Jango, which is my case, and a lot of people with Lightspeed Bundle's case, then you should go for Jango and use this Datacron to some effect. Really, you want the level 6 of the damage, the debuffs causing max health damage, and then you have Jango, just some extra survivability, extra damage with him. Sure, why not? Throw it in there. Next, we're talking about Dengar. Dengar is really the one you want over Jango in almost every situation, except for the one where you don't have Dengar Relic. So Dengar is one of the best ones of the set. He's definitely going up into the great tier. Eighth Brother. I'm not even going to read this one. It's bad. Don't get it. Get Grand Inquisitor. Even if you have Eighth Brother, but you don't have Grand Inquisitor yet, this is just so bad. I don't even think it's worth getting. Just get your Grand Inquisitor one, so that way, as soon as you unlock Grand Inquisitor, you can just use that instead. Hondo. Hondo is great. Whenever Hondo uses a basic ability, he gains 9 additional stacks of ransom, protection up, stacking for 2 turns, and reduces his cooldowns by 1. Every time he uses his basic, he's reducing cooldowns, getting 9 additional stacks of ransom. It's just incredible. Pair that with Dash Rendar, pair that with Beskar Armor Mando. You've got a great Datacron. Starkiller. We talked about the specifics of this, but this is a great Datacron. Basically, taking his Omicron and putting it into other game modes where you don't have to be in GAC now to use it. Absolutely incredible. Highly recommend. Or saying is going to be situational with the level 6 that we talked about with the stuns. You could definitely kind of spam turns out with her and make it almost like a mini Dengar Datacron. So next we're going to talk about Maul. Maul, first time he's defeated, revive the 100% health, gain health over time for 2 turns, and take a bonus turn. I'm going to put this in situational. I think you could argue that it's a great Datacron. I really think that the other Datacrons that are in this set are what make the Lord Vader comp, going to make the Lord Vader comp so hard to kill. But like, if this is a Maul with Maul DeLoreans, I don't know that this really helps that much. I mean, yeah, it's going to be good, but it's not going to be as good as it is with Lord Vader, specifically because a lot of the UFU stuff going on in this set. Next, we have Shorty. While Shorty's active, at the start of Shorty's turn, apply spare parts to all droid allies that don't have it. Whenever a droid ally gains spare parts, they gain 25% offense stacking for the rest of the encounter. Whenever a droid ally is defeated, dispel all debuffs on Shorty. This is actually great. I think this is a really good one. I think it's going to make Shorty a pain in the butt to kill. Not going to be as good as the support cron with Shorty, but still, I think it's going to be very good. Mission. Whenever Mission gains stealth, she recovers 100% protection. This is just bad. This is another one that, like, with Eighth Brother, that just don't get it. Even if Mission's like the only Old Republic character you have relic, it's not worth it. It's just not good in any way. Shin gains 15% turn meter when other allies use a special ability on their turn. I'm going to say this is situational. Maybe when Balin comes out, this becomes really good. Maybe if Balin has some way to like spam special abilities or something. But for now, I'm going to say it's situational. It's probably not very good. I would recommend other mercenary ones, almost all the other mercenary ones over this one. Next, we have Malicos. At the start of the battle, Malicos gains 5 stacks of Edge of Madness and 3 stacks of Resilient Defense, which can't be copied, dispelled, or prevented. First time Malicos gains 20 stacks of Edge of Madness, he gains a bonus turn, and his cooldowns are reset. this is okay. I'm going to say it's situational. I just think there's a lot of other UFUs, Datacrons that you should be going for over Malicos. And like we talked about earlier, I don't think this is going to change any matchups with Malicos. Maybe just make them slightly more reliable or slightly easier. But we also talked about how the resilient defense might screw you over. So I'm going to say it's situational. Zalbar. Zalbar gains 20% defense for each Old Republic ally. Whenever another Old Republic ally uses a special ability, Zalbar recovers 20% health and protection and inflicts a stack of damage over time for 2 turns on all enemies, which can't be evaded. This is the next best after Carth, but it's still going to be bad just because Carth is so much better than these other Old Republic ones. So I'm just going to say get Carth. Don't get Juhani. Don't get Zalbar. Don't get Mission. So anyways, that's going to end it. We went through all the level 9s, all the level 6s, all the level 3s. We went through specific recommendations for each of the good level 9s that I think you should be going after. Let me know if this format was okay. I kind of wrestled with exactly how to format this, and this is my first time kind of going through a Datacron set this in depth. We'll do some testing with the ones that I can get access to as early as possible, so be on the lookout for that. In the meantime, I love you guys. Take care and peace.